There we go. All right. Good evening, everyone. This is Pastor Anthony here with your Daily Excellence. Thank you guys so much for being here on the channel here. And if you just excuse me just for a second, I am trying to make sure that everything is running good on all of our platforms here and making sure Rumble is working like it should. And it looks like it is. We have a little bit of a delay time for those of you that are watching over on Rumble. Looks like it's about 15 seconds. So we'll get that. I got NyPrepper that's going to be joining us here in just a second. Matter of fact, he is calling in right now. So we'll have him hang out in the green room just for a second here, and then I'll bring him on and kind of get going there. Let me make sure we are good to go, though. Give me just a second here. It's taking a bit of a minute to get things running, but okay. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for being here. There's about 63 of you that have joined here on YouTube, and it looks like a handful of you guys are hanging out with us over on Rumble tonight. Like I said, we're going to have Greg from NyPrepper on in just a moment. We're going to discuss the topic tonight because really we're just going to kind of sit back and really just have a conversation tonight, which is kind of what we always do. But something big is about to happen, and I think that's pretty much the feeling. We've talked about that for quite some time. But that seems to be the feeling that we're all having. And so before we get into that conversation, I do want to take a quick moment and make sure that I give our sponsor, EMP Shield, a quick shout out and let them do their thing. So we'll be right back here in about 60 seconds.
With over 37 models that can be used around the world, our family of EMP protection devices installs easily in minutes. Being employed this year by federal organizations and electrical companies, the EMP Shield has been tested at Keystone Compliance, a federally approved DoD testing facility. Also serving as one of the world's fastest whole home surge protection devices, working in less than 1 nanosecond, the EMP Shield will protect against electromagnetic pulses, coronal mass ejections, lightning, and all forms of power surges. Proven to withstand more than 40 EMP strikes with zero degradation, the EMP Shield is also one of the world's strongest surge protectors, capable of withstanding over 100,000 amps.
All right, that's our sponsor, EMP Shield. So if you guys haven't done so yet, you should check out EMPShield.com. Use promo code DAILY. If you do that, you will save $50 off of your device that you purchase through our link. It's in our descriptions box below. And of course, when you do that, not only do you buy a product that is made here in the United States, a product that is used by our Homeland Defense system, but it's a product that will save your home, save your car, your boat, your generator, whatever you decide to hook it up to. It will protect it from electromagnetic pulses, solar storms, electromagnetic lightning, plasma lightning, whatever it is that you're trying to protect from, it will do that. And of course, once you purchase that, not only do you protect your home, support a American-made company, but you also support us here on Daily Excellence, which we greatly appreciate you guys doing. Just real quick, before I bring Greg on, just a couple of things. We'll be live tomorrow night, 6 o'clock Eastern Standard Time for Pastor Talk, so you don't want to miss that. That's with myself and my wife, Pastor Danae will be on. We'll take prayer requests online and do a little time of devotional with you guys. And if you haven't done so, make sure you follow us on all of our platforms over on Instagram and over on our Facebook page. You can follow us there as well. And of course, we are on Patreon and Rumble and X and all those places. Links are in the descriptions box below. You can do that. All right. Without any more introductions here, I'm going to bring on Greg, and hopefully this will work right here. And there he is, the man of the hour. And let me make sure that I turn on your guest spot.
Can you hear me?
I hear you loud and clear.
Okay, perfect. Okay, good.
I just have to, you know how it is when we do these lives. I gotta mute my mic so that we don't have that echo feed. So that's good. If there's a little delay time, that's probably what's going on.
Okay, yeah, I remember. Yeah.
So we'll see. Let everybody in the comments there know if you guys can hear us loud and clear. We'll take off from here. We got a few people coming over. We got some folks from your channel that are popping on. Mr. Davis Thomas. We've got Mr. BJ Bumblebee, one of our moderators. Kimber from over at COT. Rattling Bones. We got Rick's Groin from the Netherlands. Good to have you with us tonight. We got David Beep 58, Tim Johnson, Soul Reactivator, Bob Lemon from East Texas, Michelle Law, and tons of people coming in. So good to have everyone with us. Carol McCarthy, and everybody is saying they can hear us loud and clear. We're coming in good. So, all right. Well, we have a lot to discuss. And you know, Greg, I don't really have I don't have an agenda tonight, man. We're just gonna talk it out because there's so much going on. You know, and I entitled tonight's broadcast just simply this: something big is about to happen. And I think we can all attest to that we are definitely on the precipice of something big. And so I'll just kind of start with this. You know, we've seen this back and forth rhetoric with the United States, Donald Trump, and Russia. And Putin, of course, we've talked about this several times in the past. You know, there for a second, about 3 weeks ago, it kind of looked like that maybe there was a hope for some peace. But, you know, I was pretty skeptical about it once that came out. And of course, I had a good right to be, to be speculative about it because it didn't happen. Instead, you know, we got Trump, you know, threatening or doing whatever he's going to do about sending Tomahawk missiles. We've got now Russia flexing its muscle, testing out some of its new missiles that are capable of potentially reaching us here on U.S. soil. We've got now the United States, Trump wanting to test our own nukes out. So what's the update, man? I'm just going to let you kind of take off with that. Build you a little platform and take off, man.
Yeah, so Russia tested 2 big weapon systems in the last week, the Burevestnik and the Status 6 Poseidon. The Burevestnik is something that Russia's been testing for quite a while. I think they started testing it in 2018, maybe earlier. That was the one where, if you remember, there was like an explosion up in the Russian Arctic. I think that was a couple of years back. If you remember that, there was a huge explosion and a bunch of radioactive contamination, and some Russian scientists got killed, I think. I can't remember exactly when that was, but I'm sure a lot of people remember. That was when they were testing the Burevestnik. So it's a nuclear-powered cruise missile, basically has an unlimited range. Unlimited, you know, it's not going to stay up in the air forever, obviously, because there's always limitations to everything, but unlimited in terms of typical cruise missiles that are powered by like solid fuel, like regular rocket fuel. They usually have a range of 1,500 miles around there. And the limitation with rocket fuel, even if it's solid rocket fuel, which is pretty much nowadays, that's all we use, except Russia and North Korea have some liquid-fueled ICBMs still, but that's okay for an ICBM. But for a cruise missile, the limitation is that there's only so much rocket fuel you can pack into that missile because it's heavy. The rocket fuel itself takes up space and weight. So you would need a cruise missile the size of, you know, a 747 in order to, you know, traverse the globe as a cruise missile, you know. So Russia figured out a way to kind of circumvent that with a nuclear engine. So you don't need all that heavy, you know, massive amount of rocket fuel. You have something that's small but can produce a lot of power. So they developed basically a nuclear-powered cruise missile. Everything we know about it, from what we've seen, is it's roughly the size of like a Tomahawk missile. And because of the nuclear engine, it can stay up in the air for, I think, based on what Putin said, 14,000 kilometers, but he said that wasn't the max range. That's just what they tested it at. It could have kept going. The limitation with something like that would obviously be, even though the engine can run forever, the missile itself is going to be undergoing a lot of friction from, flying through the air. So eventually it would degrade and break apart. But it probably could stay in the air for hours and hours for sure, because, we have passenger planes that can stay in the air for, easily 10, 12 hours, then refuel and do it again all day long. So basically the missile flies as fast as a passenger plane. It doesn't fly very fast. It's a cruise missile, so it's meant to be stealthy. It can change direction. Think of a plane, okay? Anything a plane can do, that's what a cruise missile can do, because cruise missiles fly roughly the same speed as a passenger plane. So anything that a passenger plane can do, including, complete 180s, turning around, doing circles, they can do all that, up and down, increase altitude, decrease altitude. So it gives Russia infinite flexibility almost in terms of evading air defenses and trying to outmaneuver NATO's very advanced air defenses. NATO and the U.S. have very, very good air defenses. That's one thing that, they have that's very good. They have really good engineers. They have great radars. And so their air defenses are very good. So I think Russia has been trying to figure out ways to penetrate that, as we see with this system. And then their hypersonic missiles, that's another way they can penetrate. Is it a game changer? I wouldn't say it's a game changer necessarily. There's other systems that we have, for example, that could also be considered game changers that people don't really talk about much. Everybody talks about how Russia has all these weapons and we don't have anything. There's a lot of secret stuff that we have that, hasn't really truly been disclosed. But then we also have the Status 6 Poseidon, which is very concerning. That's probably more concerning than the Burevestnik, because that system can carry warheads that are bigger than the Tsar bomb. I don't know if you're familiar with the Tsar bomb, are you? No,
I'm not.
Okay, so the Tsar bomb is the largest nuclear bomb ever tested by mankind, and it was tested by the Soviets during the early days of the Cold War, when it was like that initial stage where we were kind of competing over who had the biggest bombs, like the first 10, 20 years, like the 1950s, 1960s. That was when the hydrogen bomb was developed. And at that particular time, the stage that we were at, it was just a competition of who was bigger. Russia tested a 10 megaton bomb. We got to test a 15 megaton bomb. Then the Russians would test a 20 megaton bomb. Then we would go 25, and it was just bigger and bigger and bigger. And so Russia eventually just decided to make this massive bomb to show that their bomb's the biggest, essentially. The biggest we ever tested was Castle Bravo, which was 15 megatons. Just for comparison, the amount of firepower that Castle Bravo bomb had is like the equivalent of an entire B-2 stealth bomber dropping all of its nukes on one target. That's how much power just that one Castle Bravo had. But the Russians created the Tsar bomb, which had 50 megatons. So that's like 3 times as powerful as our most powerful bomb. And they tested that up near the Barents Sea. And that bomb was so powerful, you can read about it. There's a lot of information about the effects and stuff like that. But it broke windows at least 500 miles away in Norway. 500 miles away, people's windows were being shattered. I mean, that is just totally insane to think about. That would be like, let's say you drop a bomb on Washington, D.C., your windows breaking in Boston, I mean, that's incredible power. And so the Russians are believed to have on this Status 6 Poseidon warheads at least as big as the Tsar bomb on each one of those Poseidons. Now, they have this new submarine that they just launched over the weekend that can hold 6 of those status 6 Poseidons each. And so what this is just a massive torpedo that's nuclear powered and nuclear armed. So you have that huge warhead on the end of it, and it's got a nuclear engine just like a submarine would have. It can also go into stealth mode, so it's not detected by our undersea surveillance system. So we have an undersea surveillance system to detect submarines. Consider it like a tripwire sort of. We built it during the Cold War, and so they've already engineered it to be stealthy, so it doesn't trip our sonars undersea. The surveillance system we have in the Atlantic and the Pacific. And so this thing can just stealthily, stay in the ocean for a long period of time. And at any time, it can just go to, let's say, New York Harbor or Norfolk, Virginia, where the carriers are, or San Diego or whatever, and just detonate. And just imagine the destruction that would cause with such a massive warhead. And how do we know that they have that big of a warhead? It's because of the pictures that Russia released. Now, unless those pictures were just dummy pictures, like props for like propaganda purposes, that's a possibility too. But assuming those pictures are legit, based on the size of the warhead, that's how they know that this thing is several tens of megatons of power per each one. So they just tested those. And now Trump is going to be testing an ICBM tonight. They were supposed to do it last night. I think they're going to do it tonight instead. So Trump obviously wants to show that, we have some firepower too. Now, one thing I wanted to mention is related to like the revolutionary weapons that Russia has. There's one thing that people are not considering with the Golden Dome system. So the Golden Dome system is supposed to be space-based missile interceptors. So they're just, like Patriot missiles on satellites, essentially. And the idea is that when the ICBMs go up into low Earth orbit, it would be much easier to shoot them down from space because the missiles will be right there, because missiles go up into low Earth orbit and then they release the warheads out in space and the warheads drop back down. So the idea is that if we have interceptors out in space already, we can shoot the missile before it releases the warhead up in space, which is a whole lot easier than having to chase it down from Earth and intercept it in the sky somewhere. It's a much more efficient way to do it. But one thing people don't consider about this whole system, and I think Russia is probably very concerned about it, is that this could be used offensively too. Because even though these missiles are programmed as defensive missiles, they can easily be used for offensive purposes. It's just like any other missile. It all has to do with the programming that the missile has. So, the programming could be to intercept, but if they want to, they could change the programming and use those missiles to conduct strikes on Russia or China and North Korea. So basically, it could be considered a violation of the Outer Space Treaty, deploying nuclear weapons or weapons in space. I'm sure Russia knows that. They're not stupid, but that could be why Putin feels so concerned, and that's why Putin's testing all these weapons all of a sudden, because I think he kind of feels like the Golden Dome system could potentially be a sneaky way for the U.S. to deploy offensive weapons into space as well as defensive, because they can be used either way. I mean, we've seen the Russians use S-300s when the Russians were running out of offensive missiles in the beginning of the war. Like after the first year, they used up a bunch of their short-range missiles, and they were actually using their S-300 and S-400s as ballistic missiles. They just recalibrated the programming, and that's it. It's just like your car. You can recalibrate your engine's computer. You can have it be a regular, grocery getter, or you can tune it up and make it into a hot rod if you want. It depends on how you program. Same thing with missiles. So then there's other things too that the U.S. probably has, like rods of God. I don't know if you've heard of that technology. But yeah, I don't see that there's going to be any peace anytime soon, based on what Putin's doing and what Trump is doing now with more testing. He said that we're going to start doing more nuclear testing. Whether that means we're going to be actually detonating nuclear warheads, maybe. I mean, maybe we'll start doing underground testing again. Maybe we're going to test in the Arctic Ocean somewhere. Very possible. So it looks like we're back in the Cold War days now. I don't think we're going to have any miraculous peace treaty. I think it's just going to keep escalating. I think right now the Ukraine war is pretty stalled out. It's a stalemate for now. Russia's making some tactical gains in certain areas like Pokrovsk and Kupiansk, which are critical cities in eastern Ukraine. If you remember, Kupiansk was the one city in the Luhansk Oblast when the Ukrainians had their first big counterattack, not the second one that failed, but the first successful counterattack that they had, which was like a year after the war started. And they pushed the Russians all the way out of Kharkiv and then all the way to the east. And Kupiansk was one of the big cities that they regained during that counterattack. So if the Russians take it back from them, that's going to be a huge blow to the Ukrainian morale. I think that's why the Russians want to take it, to kind of make it feel like it's futile to fight against the Russian army, that, yeah, you're going to counterattack us, but then we're just going to take everything back eventually. So don't even bother. But yeah, the war is pretty much stalled out for now. One thing that's interesting is that the U.S., it came out a couple of weeks ago that the U.S. is like basically doing all those strikes on the Russian oil refineries and the Russian energy and stuff like that we've been seeing, pretty much are 99% planned out by the United States. That came out a couple weeks ago. So even though the Trump administration initially in the beginning days of his presidency was like coming across as anti-Ukrainian and pro-Putin, all the while behind the scenes, Trump's military was planning all these attacks in the background against the Russian oil infrastructure. Was that intentional? Maybe Trump was trying to outsmart Putin and basically lead Putin on and try to, make it seem like I'm going to be Putin's friend and we're going to meet in Alaska. And then all the while he's telling his generals, okay, just go and tell the Ukrainians where to strike, have them wear down their oil refineries, which are the backbone of Russia's economy and especially their military. That's how they make all their funding, So the Ukrainians are basically just pulling the trigger, and the U.S. is the one that's really involved in planning, organizing, suggesting strikes, and the Ukrainians just say, okay, we'll do it. And, they get all the targeting information because Ukraine doesn't have their own satellites. They have intelligence. They have really good, human intelligence, like spies and people embedded inside of Russia in the government and things like that. They're really good at. They don't have sophisticated geospatial intelligence that you need to be able to see all these different refineries. You have to watch every single day some of these targets. You need to have real-time satellite capabilities to monitor constantly to see what facilities are in use, things like that. So I think this is just a beginning, to be honest, of a much larger escalation that's going to occur over the next few years. I don't see at this point any way that Trump and Putin can, become friends all of a sudden again. But that was a pretty long answer, but
Yeah, I agree. It seems like we've entered a new era of being in a Cold War. It's definitely feeling like the days where Russia had some ships parked over in Havana, Cuba, and there was a threat of nukes being launched from Cuba over into the U.S. and people were, I think at that time, people were doing like drills, like hiding under their desk and things like that. And yeah, my personal opinion, and you kind of hit it a little bit. You know, I don't think I don't think Putin will probably try anything specifically on a large scale anyway, while Trump is in office. But I think that they'll probably try once he gets out of office. Right now it's just kind of like saber rattling back and forth because I feel like Putin kind of realizes that Trump's not going to bluff as much as he's not going to bluff. They're not going to call each other's bluffs because I know that both of them will do it.
Right.
But there is, and I think the whole world is kind of just sitting back right now, at least in that theater anyway, and just kind of waiting for the guard to change. And while that's happening, you're seeing military buildup all across Europe. Especially in Poland and across Germany and France and the Baltic states, places like that. They're building up a lot of military and getting ready for the inevitable. And we've seen this in our histories past too. When the breakout of what was it, either World War I or World War II, it might have been the beginning of World War II, where we saw the United States trying to make peace in Europe with Russia and all the same players, and it didn't work. Instead, World War II broke out, and of course, Nazi Germany got involved, and we had a huge takeover over there. And history has a weird way of coming back and repeating itself. We're seeing it with the Cold War with Russia. We're seeing it with the armament of Europe and all those same players again. And then we go to the other side of the world, and you go over into Asia, and we're seeing this stuff go on with China and with Japan and things going on over there. And that's been another story that no one really wants to talk about anymore. No one wants to talk about Taiwan and what potentially could happen over there. You don't even hear too much unless China does something with its tariffs. We don't hear too much news coming out of China these days. So you got that going on. Then you have this new flare up in Africa. It looks like we're going to go to war with an African nation now. And I forgot what country that was. It starts with an N.
Nigeria.
Nigeria, yeah.
Yep.
So this is something I don't quite, maybe you can kind of key us in on exactly what's going on with that one. But what's our deal? I know the government of Nigeria, from what I understand, has been performing genocide towards its residents, especially those of the Christian faith. And so I'm not too sure if this is to try to get this guy out of office, and so we're going in to reestablish a new government, or if it's something different. So if you know about that, maybe want to explain to the viewers just exactly what it is that we're about to be doing over there.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't know a whole lot about the details, but I mean, obviously, for years, there's always been persecution of Christians in Africa throughout different countries, and Nigeria definitely one of them. And Nigeria nowadays has a large Christian population, both Protestant and Catholic. It's pretty. I think it's the. I'm almost 100% sure. It's the most Christian African country, I believe. Maybe South Africa too. I don't know, but I think it's like 40% or more practicing Christians there. So it's a threat to the Muslim militants in the region. All those different Muslim affiliated groups. Some of them are doing all kinds of bad things over there, as we know, terrorizing the local populations. So it's possible we could go into there too. I mean, we have a lot of different weapons at our disposal that we've never used it really much in Africa. We've been so focused on Europe and the Middle East and Asia. I wouldn't be surprised if Trump went in over there to Nigeria, maybe sent some special ops or limited airstrikes on some camps. Um, it wouldn't be hard to do. I don't believe they have any really good air defenses or anything like that. So it wouldn't be a particularly challenging thing. So yeah, but it's part of Trump's strategy of going into different areas than we've previously gone into, like the Middle East or Europe. Those are like conflict zones that the U.S. has been involved in for decades, right? But we've never really done much in South America or Africa. Maybe he sees those as like easy wins, because Trump doesn't like anything too difficult as far as like wars go. He doesn't want to be involved in any kind of protracted war. So I think he looks for, if you look at the way he handled Iran, it was just a quick in and out, mostly like a symbolic strike than anything else, with the stealth bombers hitting the Fordow. That was more of a symbolic strike. I mean, yeah, they damaged a good amount, but of course, Iran has dozens and dozens of different bunkers. So you can't believe that they destroyed all their nuclear material and, with two bombers, you know what I mean? So he looks for like these easy victories where we can go in, take care of business and leave without too much cost. And that's like Nigeria would definitely be that. Venezuela could potentially be costly. If we go into Venezuela in the next couple of days, that could be probably one of Trump's biggest military operations yet as a president. Because remember, in his first term, he didn't really do anything. He took out Soleimani, but he didn't do any like big military campaigns or anything like Bush or Obama. So that would be a big thing for him, and we'll see how he handles that. How he does as a commander in chief in that situation. That'll be very telling, especially if things escalate with Russia. This will be a good, warm up for him.
Yeah, that's true. It would be definitely a good warm up for him, especially. And I think we probably will go to Venezuela and maybe some other areas too, because I think the rule of thought there is those areas have gone unprotected for so long. I think it's more than just the cartels, in my personal opinion, that they're going after.
Oh yeah.
You've got the I forgot what that channel up there that's called. Steve Quell hit on it quite a bit in that area that was being used to funnel up a lot of smugglers into the U.S. across Venezuela.
Oh yeah, that's the Darien Gap.
That's it. Yeah, yeah. The Darien Gap, and so we know that was used to funnel in not just refugees coming into the U.S. or immigrants, but it was also used to funnel in a lot of allegedly, we have to say, Chinese soldiers or people from the Middle East, people coming in from Russia or wherever, and so a lot of that stuff was left unchecked. Even in your Caribbean countries, a lot of that stuff was left unchecked as well. So we have these gaping areas around the U.S. That have been left unchecked for years. Even before the Biden administration. This thing, it stems all the way back to the beginning of Obama days. And so the rule of thought is that's really the real reason why we're going into these places, is to kind of shore up the holes that we have around the U.S., so to speak. But of course, my opinion is what's done is done. They're already here, so it's just a matter of time before things break out. We had a potential terrorist attack here in Michigan that was foiled not too long ago. that could have went bad. And of course, that's been going on everywhere. So thankfully, they are catching it, so to speak. But I want to throw something at you too, because we have all these areas, and I mentioned last week on this channel, we've been talking about nuke this, nuke that, nuclear technology, nuclear war. And everybody's been kind of throwing the nukes around. And remember back in the day where like if you use the word nuke, it was like front page news. Like it would be in huge bold lettering like this, like they're gonna nuke, right? You remember those days?
Yeah.
And that doesn't happen anymore. Like it
Yeah.
used to be kind of one of those things that kind of brought fear and urgency to people. Nowadays, we've heard it so much that now the general population is desensitized to the word. And that's
I
scary.
agree.
It's scary, but yet I feel like it's been done on purpose until the day when one does get used. And in my personal opinion, and we've discussed this before, I think one will be strategically and calculatedly used at some point. And it's going to be a shock to everyone when it happens. But I'm going to throw something at you because, we're in the midst of a government shutdown right now. They call it the Schumer shutdown. I think we're on day 35, 36 of the shutdown. And so
Right.
everybody's been kind of focused. The focus has now come off of Russia from a population standpoint, and it's off of China now. It's off of tariffs. It's off of all these areas that people have been looking at. Now it's just on Washington. So is it possible, just hypothetically speaking, is it possible that this shutdown in back rooms in the dark halls of Washington. And I'm not saying that this is a Trump fault type thing or anything. Maybe it's a deep state movement. Who knows? But is it possible that this thing was purposely perpetrated for a season to get the eyes of people off of these areas for a minute?
Yeah, it's very possible. And I think what you're saying is that they want to condition people to nuclear weapons to get it so like normal that when they do use the nukes, we're not going to be as freaked out about it. I think it's all about conditioning, which they've already done with other things. They've already conditioned people with COVID and all that other stuff. So yeah, I totally agree about that. But yeah, they're always trying to deflect and change direction. A lot of people also believe that the reason why Trump is now focusing on Venezuela is because of the Epstein files to change, to kind of get all the pressure off of him for that. And then suddenly, oh, let's go attack Maduro. We need a boogeyman now. So I look like the hero because I'm not releasing an Epstein file list. You know what I mean? That's a possibility too. I don't know. Anything's possible. I'm not saying that that's exactly what it is, but of course, yeah, they always try to distract us in different ways, and also with our politics too, like this government shutdown. I think the whole government shutdown thing is, first of all, we're tied right now as of today for the longest ever government shutdown. There's no end in sight, meaning it could be minimum another several weeks, even longer. Who knows? It could go all the way through Christmas. I wouldn't be surprised if it goes all the way to 2026, to be honest with you. So they can ruin everybody's holidays. And that's part of the plan is, let the shutdown drag on through the holidays. Just think of, the transportation secretary today said that if the shutdown continues, there's going to be massive delays to flights. So, what better way to cause chaos than to just shut down the government through the busiest travel time of the year, which is the next 2 months, November and December. Busiest travel time of the year, people flying for the holidays, whatever. What better way to piss people off and create more division, more chaos? This shutdown is going to further divide this country, make Republicans resent Democrats and Democrats resent Republicans. And so I don't see that anything good will come out of this shutdown. You know, it's just going to divide us even more. Unfortunately, it's going to affect people's holiday plans, and even worse, some people are not getting paid to work right now. They're laid off from their jobs. People don't understand how it works when there's a government shutdown. So when there's a government shutdown, you get you get furloughed, so you're not getting paid. So all the government workers that got laid off, they're not getting paid right now. So, if you don't have adequate savings, whatever the case may be, your bills are piling up. You're not getting paychecks every 2 weeks. You're going to get a paycheck when you come back. If you come back, if they may decide to just straight up lay people off, but um, and then the food stamp thing, cutting the food benefits, which I heard that Trump rolled back on that a little bit, right? I don't know if you've been following or not, but I think he, correct me if I'm wrong, I think he kind of he continued the SNAP benefits, right?
Yeah, it was from my understanding, I could be wrong. I think it was rolled back a little bit. It was like emergency fund to
Right,
do that, but the problem is the emergency fund that they have doesn't even it won't get everybody their
right.
stuff, and I think it barely will even last a full month.
No,
Um, is what
and
it
then the
is.
military too. The military, they don't have money to pay our service members. I mean, that's terrible, you know?
Yeah, I think the last couple checks, the military reserve actually came from some private donor who
Yeah,
donated money to pay
I
to
think
pay
he was
those
a
guys.
banker. I think it was one of the banks. I can't remember which one. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think um, it's like you said, it's not a coincidence that they're shutting it down during the busiest transportation season, which is now November, December. Also, you talk about uh Snap being shut down, and of course I guarantee I don't even know how many people we got watching between both our channels, but I guarantee you everybody's got a different opinion about Snap and WIC and federal benefits and things like that. But the latest numbers there's 40 million Americans who depend on that. Whether it's either whether they're people who milk the government or people who legitimately need the help.
Right.
You got people who aren't going to be able to do that. That's a lot of people who depend on that, especially when you got Thanksgiving just a couple weeks away. You got all the holidays coming around, and if people aren't able to afford their turkeys and ham and all kinds of things like that, you may start seeing things taking place in stores. Instead of people walk in to steal TVs this year on Black Friday, maybe stealing bread and turkey.
Yeah.
Things like that. So there's
Yep.
that aspect of it, and I don't know. It seems kind of odd to me that this would happen in so many ways. Um, it's very strange to me. I don't think it is what's being presented on the media, in my personal opinion, but I haven't quite put my finger on just exactly what it is they're trying to do. Because it doesn't seem like it's actually very helpful for the Democratic side to be in charge of that and have that happen, because it's mainly their base they're affecting. They're basically starving their own base, and they're
Right.
basically
Sure.
it's that base who um, takes the government subsidies. When you look at it from uh, I
Yeah.
guess a population ratio, so it doesn't make any sense how that would happen, but it just is what
Yep.
it is. Um, so you have that aspect of it. Then, if you're not distracted by the government shutdown, then there's Comet Atlas. Now, this has been very interesting because I know you've talked about it on your channel. I've dabbled in it a little bit over here. I honestly haven't given it a whole lot of attention here on Daily Excellence, but I know like BpEarthWatch has done tons of videos over there. Mike has talked about it over at COT. But now what I'm starting to find very interesting, and this is kind of this is what I've been waiting on. It's this is now we're starting to see Fox News and the major news medias are now starting to report on Comet Atlas. And the question that's being raised is this an actual comet,
Right.
or is it an alien species that they're dealing with? And
Yeah.
so now the idea, and I think this is where they're going with it, is the idea is that we're about to have some visitors. Okay. And so if the government shutdown doesn't get you, this is the next story behind the government shutdown is, oh, we've got some visitors on the way. And I find it very interesting, to say the least. And, because the comet's not burning up, it's getting ready to do the perihelion around the sun. And generally, when comets get ready to make that perihelion, they don't make it through. Like they just blow up, disintegrate. We've seen that with Comet Ison and Hale-Bopp and several other ones. But this one here isn't breaking up at all. And it's like it's at that point where it should be melting, disintegrating. Instead, it's just getting hotter, but not shrinking in density or in size or anything. And it's going to do its perihelion and it's going to come back toward us. So, I guess my question for you, and maybe you're not prepared for this, for this particular question, but what's your thoughts on this? Like, do you think they're going to use this as some kind of a distraction to, maybe force a different kind of agenda? Maybe try to get everybody on the same page. Maybe they're going to fake something to get everyone to lay their weapons down. Maybe this will be the thing to kind of break what's going on. Keep us from getting into a nuclear type situation. I mean, I don't know. We're just hypothesizing tonight. No facts.
Yeah. 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 I mean, what's interesting is they started all these congressional UFO hearings the last couple of years. And it all started, if you notice, the first one was during the COVID lockdown. I guess they figured because everybody was locked down, it was a good time to have these UFO hearings because people would have nothing better to do but, watch them. But they started these hearings, a couple of years back, and obviously they're slowly trying to, again, condition people, just like with the nuclear stuff, just like with biological stuff, just like with civil war. They want to make us numb to things that are normally very shocking and disturbing. They want to acclimate us. We'll see. I think that, for sure, people have different opinions about this. I know some people are extremely passionate and they don't believe that aliens exist. Some people believe they do. Some people believe they're fallen angels. The bottom line is that there has been evidence of things coming here, and people, and not people, but life forms coming to the Earth. Over the last 100 years, there's lots of sightings, so many different cases, whether they're fallen angels or not, aliens, whatever. There's definitely something, some species, demons, whatever they are, they're here, and they're visiting us. I think they've been visiting us for a long time. And it seems to me like this is some kind of it's an interstellar object. It's only the third one that we've ever seen. And this one is the biggest of them. It's several miles long, apparently. But what's interesting about it is that it's been giving off water. They've been able to, see like vapor coming off of it, which suggests that there's water on it.
Carbon
That's what
monoxide.
carbon monoxide. And again, that's what they're telling us, so we don't know anything. I don't have a Hubble telescope in my backyard that I can look up at this thing and confirm what they're saying is true. They're just telling us this stuff, but we don't know if that's the truth or what what is the reality. We don't even know. We don't know, like with the space program, how suddenly we had all the Apollo missions and we were going to the moon, and we had all the astronauts, and then suddenly, boom, it just stopped. And our technology is so much better now than it was during the Apollo missions. Does that mean that we quit space exploration? No, I don't think so. I think there was some kind of a leap in technology that caused us to basically phase that out because it's obsolete, that we don't need to have these big spaceships going to the moon anymore. There was some kind of a leap in technology that occurred in the 80s, 90s that jumped us to the next level, to the point where we don't need astronauts to fly up in these big rockets anymore. And they're doing other things that we don't know about. I mean, how do we know that there's not a base on the moon, that the US didn't create a base on the moon? How do we know the Russians or Chinese haven't done that? How do we know, what kind of space travel technology that our government has? They've been working on high speed travel. The U.S. Space industry and NASA. They've been trying to create advanced propulsion for years. Because they realized that the shortcomings of our current space travel is that it takes extremely long to get anywhere. Like, to go to Mars, I think it's like 8 months one way or something, or maybe longer. I don't know. You need, like, for humans to go to Mars, you need like several years. You need that because it takes like a year to get there, then a year to get back. So they've been trying to figure out ways to get around that. And I've heard that they've already developed different types of advanced propulsion systems, potentially anti-gravity systems, which are necessary for any kind of sustained space exploration, to basically generate gravity so the human body doesn't have the negative effects of being weightless, which I'm sure you're probably familiar with. All your whole body chemistry gets out of whack when there's no gravity on it. So that's another thing that they've been working on. I've heard that like warp drives are things that NASA's been working on. Warp drives, which is basically like, creating wormholes in space to be able to traverse long distances in space in very short periods of time. They've been working on this stuff for a very, very long time. We just don't see any of it. And fallen angels or aliens, whatever they are, they're definitely here, and they've been visiting us. And I would not be surprised if that was, some kind of interstellar reconnaissance ship. There was also light. I think they said light was coming off of it, if I remember correctly, too. So yeah, we just don't know the details. That we're at the mercy of what the government's telling us. So
Yeah, I tend to I kind of tend to take L.A. Marzulli's theory on this one. They're I think they're making a plan to use all these unexplained things. There's been there's been a lot of footage of lights and stuff going on in the oceans off the coast of like Florida and California and off our shorelines, and even in like some of our bays and stuff. And you could see them. There's tons of YouTube videos, tons of videos on X where you see these lights just zooming all over the place under the water. They rise out of the water, then they fall back down without creating a splash or anything like that. And it's been reported all over the world. We've had people come on the channel and talk about this technology that nobody can explain, especially when there were the drones being reported all over the place, which, by the way, that hasn't stopped. It's still happening everywhere. They're just not talking about it anymore. They found a way to phase that out of the news and to phase those reports, but it hasn't stopped by any means. So that's still happening. Matter of fact, I think we had a report. I did a report, what was it, last month? They had to shut down an airport over in I forgot, was it France? Over around Paris. They had to shut the airport down because they had objects flying over the tarmac and stuff like that.
It happened today, just this evening in Belgium. Yeah.
Yeah, they couldn't identify what it was. It wasn't anything that we had. And they had the ground planes and stuff. So no one knows what it is, what's happening or anything like that. But, L.A. Marzulli, he has this theory where he says, when we go up, they come down. And it's basically, he's stating that when the removal of the church takes place and the Lord comes to get us, that they're going to come back and say, well, it was the aliens that took us. I'm under the personal belief, I don't believe in little green men from Mars per se, or like ET phone home type of thing. However, I do believe that there are fallen angels, demonic entities, demonic spirits that can take different forms, and we've seen that, even in the biblical standpoint, where Jesus will cast demons into pigs and they go crazy and they'll run off they'll run off a cliff, or you see people being demonically influenced or things like that. And so we know that these demonic entities can take on different forms. And who's to say that mankind hasn't created, with the experimentation that we do, because we did it back in the days of Noah, when we were messing with DNAs and messing with things that we weren't supposed to. Who's to say, that these entities don't take the space that we create that wasn't supposed to be created, these weird little experiments that are going on in these laboratories using foreign DNAs and experimentations and things like that. And the spirit that takes that isn't from God, but maybe an entity, a demonic force or something like that. So, don't be surprised if when we go down the line, that we don't get some kind of announcement and some kind of weird looking thing behind the U.S. podium at the White House, and they say, "Oh, hey, by the way, here's where we came from, and we're going to make an intergalactic alliance with these things." Except it's not a thing. It's not a life form from Nebular or wherever. It's a demonic entity based on something that we manipulated and created. And
very possible.
Yeah, mankind as human beings, we have the ability to accept Jesus Christ into our hearts, or we have the ability to accept demonic forces. And as a culture, and as a world, we've really accepted demonic things, and the more we accept it, the more power we give to these things. And so I think that, in my personal opinion, that's probably the direction things are going, and I think it may be making room for that. And who knows, we may be getting to a place, and I'm just speculating, I'm just spitballing here, but we may get to a place where we're getting ready to launch nukes at each other. Maybe Russia and the United States finally have it, and we get ready to launch some stuff at each other, and all of a sudden it's this little weird life form pops up and saves the world. I mean, you never know,
Yeah.
I mean, and we know that in the last days we're gonna see weird sights. We're gonna see things in the heavens and in the earth and all over the place, and it's gonna be scary for some people who don't know. And I think that's just where we're at. So I know I brought a lot of different things to the table tonight, because these are all things that are happening. And the one thing we didn't even touch on tonight was AI. We didn't even touch on AI tonight, and its capabilities and what it's doing behind the scenes, because there's an AI war going on between our countries and the development of that software. And even with some of these robots that are coming out, I think I read an article yesterday that next year you can have a robot in your home that'll help you do your daily chores.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
It's going to cost you about $20,000. You can put a down payment for $350 on one. Starting next year, and you can do it'll be like iRobot with Will Smith. You'll have something in there to fold your laundry or whatever.
Say goodbye to housekeepers and butlers. They're going to be out of business.
You're not going to need any of those things, but what's controlling those things? It's going to be AI. And
absolutely.
What if what's behind AI? Where's all this knowledge dump coming from? We get cures for cancer. We're getting space exploration. We're getting education coming from it. They're talking about AI replacing teachers in the classroom and being able to give all public schools the same type of teaching and abilities that you would get at Harvard using AI and hologram teachers. But what's feeding you got to sit back and think about what's feeding this information and who's controlling that information And as things manipulate and progress, where is that progression going, and where is that progression leading? Who's in charge of this?
Right.
Because there's not one particular individual who's in charge of it. Like, where is it coming from? And
I think
so,
it's satanic for sure.
yeah,
It's
like
definitely satanic. And one thing, it's interesting, like predictive programming. We had the Terminator movies in the 80s and the 90s. And I was a kid when they came out, and I remember seeing it, and I was like blown away by, like, wow, there's actual robots out there that can talk and, you know, think on their own. And like, it just seemed so far-fetched at that time. When the movies came out, I was like, wow, this is so crazy. It seemed like so far-fetched. And now pretty much we probably already have Terminators in real life. We already have that technology, the algorithms. We have F-16s that can fly on their own. I don't know if you heard about that they recently did trials. And what they did was they uploaded this AI algorithm into an unmanned F-16, and they pitted it against the best F-16 pilots that we have. And in all of their testing and comparisons, the AI piloted F-16 won and defeated the best F-16 pilots we have. So that's pretty scary. And then they're considering uploading the AI into our new stealth bombers. Not considering, they will. Our stealth bombers, the B-21s, are going to be fully autonomous with the capability, either autonomous or human piloted. The idea behind that is that if something were to happen to the human pilots, let's say they can't get to the bomber in time because, if there's a nuclear attack, the pilots, they're not just sitting in their B2s 24/7, living in the cockpit where it's like, oh no, there's missiles coming, we got to turn the engine and fly. No, they're, just like us, they're on standby. They're like firefighters that are on watch, right? They're sitting there waiting for the call, and when they get the call, they got to scramble. They got to start the engines and take off within 10 minutes. Otherwise, they're going to be destroyed. So the idea is that if, let's say, the pilots can't get there in time, or something happens during the mission to the pilot, maybe the pilot has cold feet and doesn't want to deliver the bombs, which is something that a lot of war planners and people who study nuclear war don't really talk about. Everybody talks about how many missiles we have, how many missiles Russia has, what kind of missiles, and all that. But nobody talks about the human element. The big thing with our nukes now and Russia's nukes is that they're still controlled by people. So there's thousands and thousands of people that have to simultaneously execute, launches of hundreds of warheads for there to be a successful retaliation strike or first strike. Any one of those number of people could get cold feet. It's one thing to go through training. You go through all the training, but when it comes down to pulling the trigger, you have an enemy combatant in your sights, in your scope, and you got to actually kill this guy. It's one thing to shoot paper targets, and it's another thing when the guy's walking around eating a sandwich, and now you got to take his life, and you don't know anything about this guy. He's your enemy. Your government says he's your enemy, but maybe he's just like you. He was forced to fight the war, and he's got a family and kids, and you have to take him out. And you think these bomber pilots that they want to drop a bomb on millions of people in Russia somewhere? I mean, so I think the war planners have already figured that out, and they figured out that the solution to that is to basically automate our entire nuclear forces so that you don't need people in the silos to sit there and turn the keys, because the way it works, if you guys are not aware, we have the two-man rule in our entire nuclear triad. So no single person can launch a nuclear missile. You need two people with separate keys, and they both have to turn the keys, and they have, codes that they have to type in. So there's a lot of authentication steps. It's not like one guy can just go in there and start launching rogue missiles, But the problem with that is there's so much human interaction. You need people on the phone calling in the launch codes. You need somebody sitting there, listening to the launch codes and confirming everything and executing everything, and pilots. Everything has to be done flawlessly for it all to work the way it's supposed to. Everything has to be perfect, and it's just realistically it never happens. So that I think their idea with the stealth bombers and the unmanned F-16s is that they can automate all these things, and they don't have to worry about some guy getting cold feet in a silo, or a bomber pilot falling asleep too much, and by the time he wakes up it's too late, the bombers are destroyed or something like that. But that's exactly what the Terminator movies were warning us about 30 years ago. And it's all like predictive programming. So I think we're being conditioned to that reality, being conditioned to AI as being a normal part of our life now. And you see it with Google. Now you have the AI system, and the AI doesn't always work right. Like, I've searched stuff on Google, and the AI, it's not always right, and to think that you're going to be able to teach our children with something like that that's not always 100% accurate, and there's always glitches. So it's a very, very concerning situation with this AI. And another thing too is a lot of these software companies, a lot of the big tech companies like IBM, they were the first to create an encryption algorithm, and the name of it was, if I remember correctly, when the internet first came out in the 70s, the internet was actually created by the Department of Defense. Most people don't know that, but it was called ARPANET. ARPANET, which is short for DARPA. I'm sure you're familiar with DARPA. So DARPA literally created the internet, and then not long after, IBM came out with the first encryption protocol, and it was can't remember the name, but it was literally like something like demon or Satan or something like that. Like, the encryption protocol was literally called like Satan or something. I mean, it doesn't get more obvious, Like, this was something that's been going on for decades, so.
There we go. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, we're definitely seeing the AI technology take off. And one of the things too that they're been testing out is, especially to help with law enforcement, is the drones. Unmanned drones that they're going to be using to help do law enforcement, military, things like that. And the technology that they're going to be using at will be to help bring law and order to the streets and things like that. And when there's a little bit of scripture in Revelation, and I haven't had a chance to talk about this yet, or to really dig deep into it. But I don't know how well you know the book of Revelation, but there's a part in Revelation where it talks about a statue that doesn't move, but then a life is breathed into it. In the book of Revelation, and it's kind of like almost as if John saw this AI technology, but didn't know how to put it. When you read the book of Revelation, so I'm gonna kind of like dig into it, because I just came across this like 2 days ago, and I'm gonna do a little thing about that and talk about that, because it seems like in the book of Revelation there is actually a spot there where it looks like the John the Revelator, when he's writing this out, actually sees one of these robots. But he calls it a statue that has life that ends up being breathed into it, and begins to be like that thing that brings all nations together, which is kind of interesting in the book of Revelation to see that. So you might want to, it'd be worth looking into. But one of the things too, when you look at the book of Revelation, it talks about how a bottomless pit will be opened up, and all these like locust looking things are going to fly out. Now, this is John the Revelator trying to explain what this is. But
Right.
today, we may know
Right.
this as actually being drones that are going to go all over the
Mm.
place, chasing people down, hunting out Christians that are left behind and things like that. And so we can
Well,
kind of
another thing too
go
with
ahead.
the AI is think about what they can do with that, and the drone technology um, is probably going to get so sophisticated, like what we're seeing in Ukraine right now with the drones that they're using. This is just the beginning. Imagine drones that are tiny, like what Revelation says, like locusts that come out. They could have like swarms of these tiny little drones. I believe they already invented them. That I think the U.S. created them. They're like little drones that carry like a third of a pound of explosive. And that doesn't sound like a lot, but a third of a pound of explosive is like basically a hand grenade. And these things, they can have like a swarm of like hundreds of these little drones that have tiny amounts of explosives, and they can just fly straight like kamikaze style towards people, troops, whatever, and just kill them, and they're so small you're not going to be able to shoot them down, the size of a locust basically. And then you integrate AI into that. The AI will control all of these drones, and it's going to be able to think for itself. And it's just it's really scary, the technology, but that's a very interesting thing about Revelation. And I wanted to also just update what I was saying earlier, that the first encryption algorithm created by IBM was literally named Lucifer. Okay, I'm not joking. You can look that up for yourself. That was also known as the data encryption standard, or DES, as it's known in cybersecurity. But that was the first major encryption algorithm that that we've built off of now, and we've made a lot better. But how weird is that they use the name Lucifer? Just doesn't get more out. Like it's like so obvious to me. Like the foundations of all this technology.
That makes sense because I was, while you were talking, I wanted to look that up. And what you just said matches Revelation chapter 13. So it says this. It says in Revelation chapter 13, verse 15, it says this: He was then permitted to give life to this statue so that it could speak. And then the statue of the beast commanded that anyone refusing to worship it must die. He required everyone, small, great, rich, and poor, free and slave, to give a mark on the right hand or the forehead, and then no one could buy or sell anything without the mark, which was either the name of the beast or the number represented by his name. So he's saying that this statue was permitted life, and then it was given the ability to speak. So you have to understand. John is a first century guy trying to write out what he's seeing in the 21st century.
Right. Right.
Okay, so
Right.
what we understand, this statue that's given the ability to move, walk, and talk, we understand that today as robots, or now artificial intelligence.
Ah, gotcha.
So,
Yep.
so
Yep.
John is actually talking about AI, artificial intelligence, robots given life, and then the ability to go out and give commandments and telling people, "Hey, you need to come and get this chip, this AI thing." So, who's controlling all of that? Who
Right.
permitted this thing to come alive? Who permitted it? You
Right.
know, if you go
Right.
based upon this and you look at the context of what this is saying in Revelation chapter 13, it's the Antichrist. It's a demonic spirit. So when you're telling me just now that how they name this and where it came from, it matches Revelation chapter 13, verse 15. So I think you guys, everyone that's watching, should go and check that out, because this is something that came to my attention like 2 days ago, and now we're talking about this. So
It's like cyborgs essentially.
yeah,
Like basically we won't even know that they're robots. And that's been pushed by Hollywood for how many years, since Terminator,
yeah.
40 plus years, that there's cyborgs. So even like our government leaders could be It sounds like they could be essentially robots, and they're going to go out and give us commands.
Yeah. So that's pretty interesting. So I had to look it up though, because I was like, wait a minute, he's talking. I was like, Greg's talking about this thing, and I think I can back scripture. I know I can back scripture up to this because I just talked about it or came across it 2 days ago. I was like, whoa, wait a minute. John actually knows what AI and iRobot is. So
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I didn't even think about that. That's a good.
I don't think most people even realize it. I never realized it. I mean, I've read Revelation several times, and it just never. But that's because we were conditioned.
Right.
You know, we've been so conditioned with all that when we read something like that, it doesn't stick out. You know.
Right. Right. Because we're looking at it from the perspective of someone in the 21st century. And, John, this is a long time ago. So he's trying to describe what he sees, like you're saying. And for us, it's like gibberish when we read some of that stuff, because it's like, what, a statue that speaks? Like, what does that mean? Locusts coming out of the ground. It sounds crazy, like unbelievable. But then you think you got to kind of put yourself in the mindset of John long time ago and what he was trying to, describe, which for him, that's the only thing he could think of is like locusts or, yeah, there's a lot of things like that in Revelation that can be kind of tricky. But then when you put your perspective on from that time period, you understand, what they were trying to convey. So yeah, like even the Ezekiel 38 and 39, with the horses, they talk about like all the horses being destroyed when they try to invade Israel, all the armies and all the horses, it's not literal horses that there's, millions and millions of horses that are killed. It's tanks, modern day horses, which are tanks and all that. So
Even like speaking of Ezekiel, I think somebody here just put it in the chat room. I don't know where it went. Oh, who just said it? The Kevinator.
Oh,
He was talking about kind of like Ezekiel's whole wheel thing, right? So
I'm trying to remember what is that, the wheel thing.
Yeah, I'm trying to. I know. I remember the description, kind of, sort of about how he sees this wheel in the sky. Ezekiel does, but I can't remember the context of it because I have to go back and look at it. But from a prophetic perspective, if you're trying to explain what a wheel in the sky looks like, you can kind of match it up with what we see now today, or what movies portray. Well, what's a wheel in the sky?
UFOs.
UFOs. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Yeah. Yep.
So yeah, the wheel within a wheel is what BJ Bumblebee says. So yeah. Anyway, I think we covered a lot tonight here in our broadcast together, and I know we're broadcasting on 2 different channels. So appreciate everyone that's hanging out with us over on your channel, and everyone here on DailyExcellence, and over from COT. We've had quite a few COT people pop over as well. So appreciate everyone being here tonight. It's getting kind of late for us because we're on East Coast time. But I think we definitely probably should revisit this again. I would like to try to get you back on maybe early December or something, and try to get back to our monthly broadcast if we can. I know we got busy there for a few weeks and everything kept breaking loose. And I know there for a couple of weeks, every time I went on, news was breaking. So sometimes it gets a little difficult, but we'll try to get back to doing our monthly broadcast together for sure. So I think tonight was really good. A lot of information, and like I said, I didn't have anything written down. I got no paper. All I had was a cup of coffee, and I was just like, just gonna bring Greg on, man. We're just gonna talk and see where it goes from here. So, yeah. So that wheel, by the way, is Ezekiel chapter 1. It looks like.
Okay, I'm gonna reread that one.
Yeah, take a look at that and see what he's talking about there, because it's one of the prophetic books of the Old Testament. So. We always kind of miss some of that, so I'm going to go back and look at that too, and take a look at that. So, but other than that, Greg, thank you so much for being on here. Those of you here on Daily Excellence, I know we got a lot of new subscribers that have come over. If you haven't done so, go and check out Greg over on his channel at NyPrepper and check out what he's got, and I will bring that up real quick. And that's his channel right there. You guys, you just click on it over there, subscribe to him. He does a lot of breaking news, a lot of red alerts, emergency alerts. One of the things that Greg does is he keeps up with the things that are going on militarily around the world with movements from every theater, from the European theater, Middle East, to the Asian theater. Takes a look at nuclear codes that go off, takes a look at flight patterns and what's flying, who's flying, what they're doing. So that's what Greg does over there. And of course, he's been endorsed by oh man, what's his name?
Steve Quill.
Steve, yeah, he's been by
yeah, Steve's the man.
Yeah. So
nice guy.
He's been endorsed over there by man, I can't remember his last name. Like, why I'm having like a mental fog right at the moment.
That's all right.
But anyway,
it's been busy.
Yeah. But anyway,
back to school.
So, yeah. Hope he's not watching. He's gonna be like, "What did you do?" So yeah, man, it's bothering me now that I can't remember his name. That's sad.
Steve Quayle, you mean?
Steve Quayle, that's it.
There we go. Steve Quayle, yeah.
Steve Quayle, yeah, which we've had him on here before, so he's been endorsed by him and also by some other folks over there too. So thank you. They're putting it up on there for me now. By the Doug Hagman is
Doug Hagman.
So yeah, so you guys can go check him out. And even Mike from Council of Time has made a few references to you as well. So definitely go check him out. Good information. For sure. And of course, oftentimes you get a lot of the information first before it breaks out over on Twitter. So there's been times you'll text me and be like, "Hey, this is happening." And then, really? And then next thing I know, oh, yeah, well, Greg said it. So anyway, it's been a long day. So it's time for me to go rest this brain before I mess something else up tonight. But hey, thanks again for coming on tonight. Thank you everyone for being here, being part of the broadcast. So like I said, go over to NyPrepper, subscribe to his channel. If you haven't subscribed to us here on Daily Excellence, we would appreciate that. If you like content like this or like interviews that we do like this, you don't miss them. Subscribe to us here or over on Rumble or on X, Facebook, Instagram, all those wonderful places. Everything's in the descriptions box below. We would appreciate that. Anything you guys can do to help our channels and our workout also helps get the algorithms running in our favor, and we always can appreciate that because that does more than you realize for us. So other than that, remember, you may be the only Jesus that someone sees this week, so please keep a smile on your face, represent him well. With that being said, everyone, good night, God bless you, and we will see you guys tomorrow night here on Daily Excellence at 6 o'clock Eastern Standard Time for a Pastor Talk. So with that being said, good night, everyone.